I revealed her affair in front of everyone. After my sister-in-law called me a parasite in French. My sister-in-law smiled right at me and called me a parasite in perfect French, thinking I was too stupid to understand. She had no idea that I understood every single word, and she definitely had no idea that in less than 5 minutes, I was going to use her own secret language to detonate her marriage in front of her entire family. My name is Sarah, and my husband, Liam, is the kindest man I've ever met. He also happens to be a member of the Sterling family, whose wealth is worn like armor. The main guardians of that fortress are his mother, Eleanor, and his sister, Chloe. From the moment Liam brought me into their world, Chloe treated me like a social experiment gone wrong. The main tension? She saw me as a worthless freeloader, a quiet, unimpressive girl who had somehow tricked her brother. And to mock me, she and her mother would hold entire conversations in French right in front of me, thinking I was completely oblivious. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. It all started with love, as these things often do. I met Liam not at a high society gala, but in the muddy chaos of a music festival. He was funny and so down to earth that for the first 6 months, I had no idea his family could have bought the entire festival on a whim. The discovery of his family's wealth was a slow burn, a casual mention of a summer home that was a sprawling estate, a reference to his dad's business, which was a multinational corporation. When I finally met the Sterlings, it hit me. I hadn't just fallen in love with Liam. I had married into a dynasty. From the second we met, Chloe made it her mission to put me in my place. Her insults were an art form, always disguised as compliments. She'd look at my dress and say, "Oh, it's so brave to wear something so vibrant." I could never pull that off. She'd ask about my job as a librarian with a pitying tilt of her head. "It must be so relaxing," she'd say, "to not have to deal with any real pressure." Each comment was a tiny paper cut. One doesn't hurt, but 100 of them will make you bleed. I knew she looked down on me, but I wasn't prepared for how far she would take it. What none of them, not even Liam, knew was my secret. Before him, I'd spent 4 years living in Paris. It wasn't some glamorous study abroad program. After a bad breakup, I impulsively moved to France with almost no money. I lived in a tiny maid's room on the 6th floor, working as an au pair, a terrible waitress, and eventually a translator. Those years were tough. I was often lonely and broke. But I didn't just learn French. I breathed it. It was the language of my survival. When I moved back, I rarely talked about it. It felt too personal, and I knew a family like the Sterlings would only see my version of Paris, the one with cockroaches and cheap wine, as proof that I was unpolished and didn't belong. So, my fluency became a folded-up, silent part of me. The stage for the disaster was Richard and Eleanor's 40th wedding anniversary dinner. Chloe organized it at Lucille-l'Etoile, a temple of modern French cuisine, so exclusive you had to be invited to dine. Her phone call to invite us was a warning. "It's a very important evening. Darling, do try to look the part." The unspoken threat was loud and clear. "Don't embarrass us." The restaurant felt less like a dining room and more like a hushed cathedral for the super-rich. As soon as we sat down, it began. Eleanor turned to Chloe, dropping her voice into a conspiratorial French whisper. "Et tu te souviens de la femme avec le chapeau ridicule?" "And do you remember the woman with the ridiculous hat?" Chloe let out a delicate laugh. "Comment l'oublier? On aurait dit un peu malade." Asterisk, how could I forget? She looked like a sick peacock. Asterisk. They both glanced at me, a flicker of a smile on their lips, then switched back to English. It was a test, a way to create a club I wasn't invited to. I kept my face a perfect mask of polite confusion. A few minutes later, after the sommelier described the wine, Chloe turned to her mother. "Je parie qu'elle pense que sommelier est le nom du raisin." "I bet she thinks sommelier is the name of the grape." Eleanor chuckled. "Pauvre petite. Elle fait de son mieux, je suppose." Asterisk, poor little thing. "She does her best, I suppose." Asterisk. Poor little thing. The condescension was suffocating. My rage was a rising tide, but I just took a slow sip of water. I made a decision. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of a scene. I would sit. I would listen. and I would collect every single one of their poison words. As the appetizers were cleared, the insults kept coming. Regarde comment elle tient sa fourchette. Chloe murmured, look at how she holds her fork. And then came the word that would detonate the evening. They were discussing the modest starter home Liam and I were buying. Chloe took a sip of wine, locked her eyes on me, and said with a serene smile, her voice as smooth as silk, Franchement, je ne comprends pas pourquoi Liam paie pour tout. Elle ne contribue en rien. C'est un parasite. Asterisk frankly, I don't understand why Liam is paying for everything. She contributes nothing. She is a parasite, asterisk. A parasite, a useless organism, latching onto a host. The word exploded in my chest. In that instant, the hurt curdled into something cold and sharp. The game had changed. This night was not going to end with them getting away with it. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was a spy on a mission, feeling totally safe in my ignorance. Chloe got bolder. She started complaining about her husband, David. David est tellement prévisible. She sighed to Eleanor. Asterisk David is so prédictable astérisque, il n'y a plus d'étincelle. There's no spark anymore. She leaned in closer. Mais il y a Marc, astérisque Butzer's Marc, astérisque. My focus sharpened to a razor's edge. And then it all came tumbling out. In hushed, urgent French, Chloe painted a picture of her affair with a photographer named Marc. He was artistic and dangerous. And they'd been meeting for months in boutique hotels. She recounted lies, close calls, and the thrill of her deception. It was staggering. The woman who had just branded me a parasite was confessing to a betrayal that could shatter her own family. Any doubt I had about what to do evaporated. As if on cue, the sommelier returned and asked me in French if I was enjoying the wine. The table went quiet. All eyes were on me. This was her chance to be proven right about the little simpleton. I looked up with wide, confused eyes and said in English, "It's good." Then I turned to Liam. What did he say? Chloe let out a tiny, satisfied sigh. She had no idea I was just loading the gun she had handed me. Just before dessert, she went in for one last jab, dismissing my family and my upbringing in French. Then, she turned to me in English, a mask of fake concern on her face. "You've been so quiet all night. Peck out your tongue." That was it. The time for listening was over. I let the silence stretch. Then, I slowly placed my napkin on the table and met her gaze. "No," I said, my voice clear and steady. "The cat hasn't got my tongue." Without breaking eye contact, I switched languages. My accent as purely Parisian as the sommelier's. "En fait, Chloé, j'ai trouvé la conversation de ce soir absolument fascinante." I began. "Actually, Chloe, I found this evening's conversation absolutely fascinating." The color drained from her face. Her smug smile shattered. Liam and his father looked completely bewildered. I kept going, my voice level. "Tu es un parasite, n'est-ce pas? C'est l'un des premiers compliments que tu m'as fait ce soir." Asterisk, you are a parasite, wasn't it? That was one of the first compliments you paid me this evening. Asterisk, don't worry, I continued. I heard everything. Your critiques on my fork, your theory that I thought sommelier was a grape, and your charming dismissal of where I come from. I paused, turning to my husband and father-in-law, switching back to English. For the past 2 hours, your sister and mother have been having a separate conversation in French, assuming I was too stupid to understand. They've spent most of this anniversary dinner systematically insulting me. Liam stared at Chloe, horror dawning on his face. She sat there mute. I turned my attention back to her. "But don't worry," I said, my voice dropping. "You didn't just talk about me. You also had a very interesting conversation about Mark." The name, spoken in a language everyone understood, was the kill shot. Richard was now staring at his daughter with pure fury. "You were asking your mother for advice," I continued, my voice cold and precise. "Advice on leaving your husband for him. You discussed your secret meetings, the close calls, how much more alive Mark makes you feel. I delivered the final blow. You called me a parasite, Chloe. But it seems to me the real parasite at this table is the one living a lie, feeding off the stability her husband provides while betraying him behind his back. I picked up my purse. "Liam, I'm leaving." Chaos erupted. I walked out into the cool night air, and a moment later, Liam joined me. He just looked at me and said, "You speak French." The fallout was nuclear. The affair came out, and David filed for divorce within the week. A week later, Chloe's reputation as the family's golden child was destroyed. Months down the line, my relationship with Liam is stronger than ever. He was horrified and ashamed, and he set firm, immovable boundaries with his mother and sister. Our relationship was tested by fire, and it survived. Chloe tells everyone I'm a monster who destroyed her life over a few harmless jokes. She was furious that I understood her private language and used it to expose a truth she wanted buried. But they weren't just insulting a stranger. They were insulting me, to my face, using a language as a shield. So I have to ask, was I wrong to use that same language to pull the shield away? Or was it justified karma? What would you have done? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love stories about the arrogant getting what they deserve, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next.